Come on, come get my nice tasty flesh. You know you want it. Doesn't that look delicious? Morons. Welcome ladies and gentlemen, I am SocioPsycho and this is Mob Reviews, and today we're going to take a look at Forward to the Sky. This was created by a new game and it is available for PC, Mac, and Linux. It is a third-person action adventure with some platforming elements in there, with an underlying story and an anime feel. How well does it actually handle? And that is what we'll answer and ask today. And we will begin in the options menu. Now the options menu to the game is actually quite simplistic. There's not much in the game, but when the game loads up, there is a small window that pops up and gives you a large berth of screen resolutions, which is definitely nice. Graphically, the game is very remembrance of something as cloud built. It may make you feel like, oh, this is familiar in the ruins of that element as this game takes place climbing a tower through different levels. Graphically, the game is good. It's not anything amazing, but it's not anything bad. The game's been running at 60 frames per second with no tearing, clipping, or crashing, and I have not had any issues whatsoever with the performance of the game. The nice thing is, the music in the game does a well done job of propelling the atmosphere and the momentum through the story, as well as the fact that the OTS will be given out freely to those who have purchased the game. So that's definitely a nice bonus and makes the money value for this game just a little bit more easier to perhaps be interested in it. Now when we go to controls, there's not a way to rebind the keys, but the movements of the game are actually very simplistic. You simply have your jump and basic movement keys. All combat is done by mouse clicking, so there's really not anything that is over and captivating or confusing in the movement aspect of itself. It perhaps would have been nice to have rebindable keys, but for me, I didn't feel that there was really enough to even warrant that, but you may be different, and it's something to keep in mind of. Now there are 6 different levels for this tower, so the game may not seem very long, and it truly isn't, as the game will run in between an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on your completionist desire or speed overall. When we go into the bottom, you'll see a chapter layout. The first image is the prologue and the last one is the final ending. The 6 in between are the different levels of a tower. The images you can't fully see, the ones that sort of have stone covering up over them, are because I have not gained all the crystals on the level. So there is a collective sort of completionist attitude towards each of these levels. When you go through these levels, there will be 100 crystals on each level. They will drop from killing a monster, or they will be found in a magical statue, which will be a little bit harder or trickier to get to, or you have to solve a puzzle or some variation. So if you want to replay, if you want to go back and try again in certain areas, there is enough content so you don't feel as if you're not getting your money's worth. And this is mainly enforced by the fact that it respects your time. So let's begin with the gameplay. The gameplay of it is very simplistic. It's not anything overcomplicated. From the way you move, to the combat, to the story, the entire atmosphere of the game could be considered casual, but not so much in a fashion where it's not entertaining or doesn't have some sort of fluidity. The combat in the game is really not the selling point of the game, and while there is combat strewn out in different areas of the different levels, it's not something you come across as you would in a hack and slash. The combat system is not so flushed out and high-paced hack and slash mentality, which is fine because it doesn't put that forward. And the combat that it does have does not overstay its welcome. There are areas where if you're a completionist, then yes, you'll want to kill all the opponents because they drop crystals. But if you enjoy the combat, or you can get by, you don't want to fight, you don't have to. You can escape from those areas. And that is appreciative that the game knows its boundaries. The game sets itself up in an atmospheric world where it says, hey, explore, understand the level design, find out what's going on, fight enemies, but at the end, do what you want. Try to make your own path if you wish to. The combat is not a selling point of a game, but at the same time, it's not a negative factor of a game, and that relays to its overall balance. The main issue I have when it comes to the gameplay as you progress through these levels is actually the story. Now, not the story and how it's necessarily being told or the concept behind it, but the amount of story that is berated upon you and the amount of screen that it takes up. When you go through the level, there are some areas that are repetitive in the whole story element as the character building to get the understanding of the different personalities. I feel they could have at least cut the story that they have in half, because they don't have all that much depth. They have a lot of banter, they have a lot of filler, and the problem with all that filler is the fact that if you do replay it again, you may have to hear it, and if it bugs you, that's going to take away from your immersion. But the main issue for me was the fact that when the dialogue happened, the text and the imagery at the bottom of the screen would take up the majority of the screen. It was something that was a little bit annoying as how close your camera angle is to your character. You don't have the availability to scroll out and get a larger camera angle. So when the conversational logs pop up, they really take a chunk out of your visual horizon, so to speak. Once and twice, it's not a big deal, but eventually it becomes annoying. And this tied into the fact that there is way more dialogue than there needs to be, and it feels like they're trying to add stuff just to have stuff in there, which was a detriment more than a helpful. It does get annoying. Is it game breaking? No, but it is something that hurts the game more than it helps the game, unfortunately. So, if the combat is meh and the story is subpar, then what is really saving this game? Why is this game even entertaining if it is? And that would fall down to the level design. The level design of this game is done very well. It has multi-layers of different mechanics as you progress through the levels. It's not just a, oh, jump to this platform, now jump to that platform, now dodge this blade. As you go through the game and you get higher in the levels, you come across new mechanics. The game does not overstay its welcome or try to be a one-trick pony. There will be levels that are specifically designed with certain mechanics that you won't see on any of the other levels. This uniqueness definitely helps in keeping an engagement with the player, because as you progress forward, it doesn't get old or repetitive. It keeps it fresh, and it doesn't tie itself down. Now, there are some areas where you can manipulate the level design to actually bypass an entire level. Is it something that was meant? Perhaps not, but the fact that they even knew about it and allowed it, or kept it in, is the nice part. The part where the level design offers freedom. It has a really open feel to it and an adventure feel more than a linear path. The level and the level design, the atmosphere, and the experience that you flow through it feels more rewarding than it does hand-holding. And this even comes down to the last level where you end up fighting a boss, and the integration of the boss's mechanics mixed with the environment really do a nice job to propel a fresh and unique perspective that you didn't see anywhere else in the game up to that point. So at the end of the day, what do we have? We have a game that the combat is good enough. It's not a negative factor. It's not something that's thrown in your face, but it is something that adds to the element and the weight of the game with really not taking anything away from it. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. You have a large variable of platforming and puzzle elements to the game, which keep the game fresh as you progress forward. A level design which doesn't hold your hand necessarily. And while the game does have a fail state of a health bar, where if you die in combat or due to traps, you'll have to start over, but falling is not a worry, because you have this blimp, and if you jump off the side or you fall off the side or some variation, you'll be spawned back to where you were by the blimp, and it's not a negative factor. If you die to traps or monsters, okay. But not dying from fall damage actually prevents the game from getting frustrating, as it has a lot of open spaces. It's very easy perhaps to walk off a ledge or to get knocked off a ledge by a trap. And if it didn't have this mechanic where it will pop you back up in the area by your blimp, the game would have become so much more frustrating and possibly even destroy the atmosphere of the entire game, which would have been really unfortunate. So the fact that there is no fall consequence is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. And overall, the most important element to note about this game is that it never wasted my time. I never felt as if the time I put forward in the game was wasted, or that I was disrespected in some regard. The game, for the most part, respected me as a player, and it would have been nice if the game was at least 12 levels large instead of 6, but it's not. I enjoyed my time in it, and I can easily recommend it if you're looking for a quick 2 to 3 hour adventure, because that's what it feels like. It feels like a nice little adventure. Yes, it has some issues here and there, but not enough to destroy the game overall. So ladies and gentlemen, I've been SocioPsycho, and this is Mob Reviews, and I can easily recommend this game, and I'll see you next time.